Appreciate you all being here. Thanks for joining us. I don't know. Thank you. Is that you, Miranda? There it is.
Done. Sorry about that.
You can sit here, Mr. Chair.
I'll sit right here.
Listen, as we've had talks over the last little while, we have in the room and you, hopefully those of you online, our owl will allow you to see those present. Just as if we can start, the three of us here, Commissioner or Chair Jenkins, Vice Chair Froer, and myself are here. The ambassador of absolute pandemonium, Eric, go ahead. Go ahead.
Shane Dunleavy.
John Lewis.
Jared Anderson. Bud
With-
Huckle. I'm
hold
with
on.
Sunrise Engineering, working on the sewer study.
Okay, Bud.
Bud Huckle, Wolf Creek Water and Sewer.
Miranda Mingus, Wolf Creek Water and Sewer District.
John Bingham, Wolf Creek Water and Sewer District.
Bob Thomas, Wolf Creek Water Sewer District. John Werner, Waterworks. Sean Wilkinson, Weaver County Community Development.
Gary Myers, Weaver County Engineer.
Chad Meyer for Weaver County.
Very good, thank you. For those of you online, thank you for identifying yourself. Most of you, we can see your names associated. D. White, I don't know your first name, I'm sorry. Dan, thank you. But you're welcome to come in and what I wanted to do is when Chair Jenkins put this meeting together here several weeks ago,
Oh, I didn't put this meeting together.
when Chair Jenkins had a meeting several weeks
There you
ago,
go. There you go.
I wanted to follow up to that meeting because several things had changed in the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks. And it was important for me to make sure that we were all singing out of the same hymn book. And so as we have everybody here and talking about this, I'm glad that we've got Laurent. I see that you're here representing Nordic Valley. Shane and John here
Yes.
from, thank you. And then from Wolf Creek Development and
Osprey Ranch.
Osprey Ranch and the other things. And I'm glad we have the water districts here. But it's important. And then we also, I also wanted to make sure that we recognized the folks from Powder Mountain. I know Bob Barrett, his time zone is at like 11 o'clock at night. He's over at Inverness or at in Scotland.
Really? Probably golfing.
Yeah. And there's some other members of Powder Mountain. Ron Wilson is there and Kerry Zenger's there from the others. And we've got a couple members of the public on there too. So I wanted everybody to hear what everybody's talking about to make sure again that we're all on the same line. There's some things that have happened and I think what I'd like to do is actually start with John and Shane. I'm going to have you two begin and then Laurent, I'll have you echo, then we're going to go to the districts. Jared, I'm not going to invite you to kind of participate where you can't, especially just to listen. Jared presented a good plan on the sewer here. It was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
And so during our work session, so John and Shane, go ahead. Tell us what you know with what's happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, well, the good news is we've been able to put together a partnership with Wolf Creek Water and Sewer. And, the 30,000 foot level is basically, we have water over at Osprey that we don't need that because we have Nordic Water supplying and we've drilled wells and found sources. But we do need sewer and Wolf Creek needs water that has sewer. So we're simply coming up with an arrangement to trade and help each other out. And we found common ground. I think that works for everybody. And as of a couple of weeks ago, we went under signature and there's obviously, lots to do coming forward, but now we have a plan we can all agree on to not only service our sewer, but in phase 2 and future phases, we'll be able to help service, quite a bit of the upper valley over time. So this kind of starts the process of a sewer system moving forward, but in the meantime, it starts with a few hundred things, that we're currently working on and can fund it with that. And at the same time, it puts water back up in Wolf Creek, which needs it for its current customers and future ones. So kind of two birds, one stone.
Great,
I've got a question.
please go ahead. This is meant to be kind of an open, yeah.
Is it kind of open? Okay. So I continue to hear there is no water in the valley. From everybody who lives in the valley. Where's the water source coming from? That, and I understand it's kind of a water, but if there is no water, how can you give up water?
Yeah.
Or how can
Well,
you provide water? When I hear from various sources, there is no water.
Sure, yeah. So, we spent the last 2 years working with the state hydrologists and really digging into, no pun intended, the aquifer and how it's mapped out in the valley. And, we very specifically bought land in a direct line of sight with the best wells in the valley. So if you look at the best wells in the valley, you have Liberty Well, and you have Nordic Well, and you have Eden Well, and you have us, and then you have Ogden's Well, and it makes a straight line. That seemed, it made sense to us to drill there. We've already put Osprey in a district, Nordic, that has, last I checked, 1,000 gallons a minute capacity and only 300 some odd gallons a minute use. So they have 3 times as much water as they need in that district. So
Just to clarify, they're actually approved for 618 gallons per minute, and they've only put water rights, I think, up to 385. So
That's the Nordic well.
that's the Nordic well. Yeah, they could add additional rights to it if they wanted. They choose not to. They want to stay.
That's kind of what I've understood, but we got told this morning that Nordic doesn't have any water.
No, they actually do. They have a surplus of water, pretty significant surplus. They're just
Okay.
choosing not to put rights on for the rest, and they're
Well, what
choosing
we
not
were
to
told
expand.
this morning was an opinion by someone.
Well, it's an opinion, but I rather deal with facts and opinions.
all we're talking about is what the scientists are telling us.
No, I
and
like facts. I
The
think
state
everybody understands.
hydrologist said there is plenty of water in this valley.
Okay.
It's just not where you're looking for it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you go over here and there isn't any, and over here there's 3 times more than you need, which isn't great when you're a small guy, but if you can build a system big enough to help everybody, then you can get the resources you need for water here and for sewer there, and you can start to put together a system that works for everybody. And, the other thing to consider is when you do one of these wells, there are drawdown tests, there are very specific yields that you can't go past, and, the engineers know if you're taking too much, they won't let you. And there's a safe yield on all of these too, so we're just simply drilling and finding water like anyone else, and we have a surplus of it in one project, and we need something else in another project. And, frankly, we'd like to help, not just myself, but all the other people at Wolf Creek who really need water, but they've got great capacity for sewer over there, but it's tough to find water that doesn't interfere with somebody else. So we're just fixing problems, but we can't take any water that's not there, that isn't approved, that isn't okayed by Weaver Basin, that doesn't interfere with anybody. They have to go through all those boxes, and they don't let you near it.
Just to be clear, the wells that we have put in, test wells, and even the neighbor's well, we put transducers in everything. So we're measuring it constantly, we're updating, we're not affecting anyone else's water. We've tested our water, it's just a test well right now at 110 gallons a minute. We can probably reproduce that 2 or 3 times in one site. And then we have 2 other target sites that are very high probability sites. And then we have a shallow well that it's only a 17-foot well that we use for secondary water, construction water. And you don't have to permit that, but we did, went ahead and permit, went through the state engineer, put water rights on it. So it's all out there in the open. And it's what we're using for our construction water on Osprey Ranch right now. So we're not pulling out of Nordic's water supply. And then with Nordic, we're enhancing their system by adding a 250,000 gallon tank. It's about 30–40% more than we need, but the fire marshal requested it. He'd like to have more fire capacity. We did some upgrades to the valving, et cetera, so they can increase the flow. So if there is a fire there, they can just run it wide open and have better fires.
Better fire suppression.
Yeah, better fire suppression.
Great. Anything else to that? So you have an agreement. What your agreement is to, is it for both water and for sewer, or for water and discharge? What is it?
Yeah, the other thing we kind of discovered and kind of trying to put together our own sewer district is there really was a problem, and almost still is, but we're finishing fixing it, is the disposal of treated water from the sewer system. And, the logical place to put treated water is on a golf course or on some kind of land use. And that's easy to do everywhere else except our valley. And they've been able to do it on their golf course, and now we can continue to do it on there. So, we're just trying to continue to move towards a solution that reuses water, correctly, and tries to be environmental about it and not wasteful. And, we've made all sorts of other concessions, like we're going to go repipe the golf course, and that will be very much more efficient than it currently is. And we'll bring secondary water up to the resort, not just drinking water. All sorts of improvements. We need a place to store water. One of the interesting problems in our valley is we have water, but at the wrong time of year too. So we have it in May, but we don't have it in August. But if we had reservoirs to hold that water from May till August, roughly, then we would have a whole lot more capacity. So that's something we're working together on to try to build a 90-acre pond. And, once we have that, that's a place to store reused water. That's a good place to store spring water. And then come August, when we all need it, we'll have it. So we're very desperately trying to build for the future, not just use up resources.
Thank you.
And one other piece to the puzzle is that, Wolf Creek has a finite capacity. And so similar to a TDR, John agreed to take 200 of his connections offline in Wolf Creek until there's additional capacity that we could use for our other projects that were outside the Wolf Creek district. So we're not hurting anyone in that district that currently thinks they're getting a connection, not taking away from anybody.
Yeah, the water and sewer company is very adamant about it can't affect anybody who's on our system now. None of it can't cost our people a dime. The capacity can't be moved or changed. So we're being very diligent to stay within the lines that protect the current district.
And also, we were asked by planning to please future-proof it. So although we only need 61 connections in Osprey, we sized it for 1,000 connections. And everything we bring up will be oversized so that in the future, people can connect to it.
If they decide.
Yeah.
The good thing about everything we're doing is none of it's mandatory for anybody. But when the day comes, and it will come someday, they're going to need capacity. We'll have already built it into the system.
Very good. Thank you. Either of any others? And Eric, do you have a comment on any of this?
We've covered everything.
Laurent, what can you tell us about Nordic Valley with that?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. We have started to work on this sewer project. We talked with John and Shane. We would be more comfortable working with them than doing our own system. Because that we would have to recycle that water, reuse it. And at this time, it seems difficult to reuse it on the mountain as stomaching or on the ground as secondary water. So we would rather work with them so that they can eventually reuse that water on the golf course or somewhere else. We have also talked with Powder Mountain Water and Sewer to see how we could work together as well. And well, the timeline is different because we could start working with Osprey Ranch and on the other side of this mountain quite quickly compared to Powder Mountain, where we would have to do a lot of more investments, and it may take more time as well.
I might add something to that, Laurent, that we really are looking at this as at least a two-prong approach, a two-phase. So initially what we're starting with and what we made agreements with Wolf Creek is with the 200 things we're currently doing with Osprey and Cobave and whatnot. But there will be a day soon when, Nordic will wake up or something else will happen and they'll need capacity. And at that point, we do get into a capacity issue with Wolf Creek. So, there'll need to be another plant built at some point. And, it's important that the developers like Laurent or myself pay for that plant or help seed it. But it's not tomorrow, it's not even next year, but it's coming. And, that's the next phase we work on. So today, what can we do and get it done today? And, 2 years from now, maybe we're kicking in money towards a second plant, but it is a two-phase approach.
Got it. Commissioners, any questions?
You might mention that he's building capacity in his current lines right now, lost rate to bring on Nordic.
And,
Or whatever else.
Yeah, whatever else,
That's what
yeah.
I got from it.
Yeah. I mean, Maverick, whatever's not working, there's capacity there for them. to hook in.
I mean, the hope is whatever we build isn't redundant or small. It should reflect what the county's bigger 30,000-foot vision looks like 20 years from now. Don't put in a 4-inch line in Liberty right now. Go ahead and put an 8-inch in. You're gonna need it someday. And it just makes no sense later to upsize it.
Agreed. That's my thinking.
Yeah.
If you're gonna open up the hole, you might as well do the best you can. It costs a little more for pipe. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Pioneer it. Someday you get paid back, but it's done for the future.
Are there
Try to
any-
Mirror whatever Jared's gonna come up with. I mean, we consulted with him a little bit. We have an idea. And so whatever we build, we want to make sure it matches what he thinks is the best plan for the county.
And can I actually step in on that real quick? If there was no communications with stakeholders, with districts, I'm at 30,000 feet and just saying, this is what I would do. And for the most part, it doesn't come out that way. So this has been, the last 6 months has been incredible. I couldn't have written in my report a better outcome as far as working together, bringing in stakeholders and districts and saying, hey, we're all going to work on this and make it a good plan. It's just phenomenal. I couldn't imagine it working out better for the first step.
While I only have one vote of the three, I commend Commissioner Jenkins in starting this program, putting it together and asking before we do any ARPA money, that all the districts work together and find a solutions for the whole valley and not just one or maybe two, but the whole thing. And that's the reason where we've had so much time. Now it's about a month, 3 weeks to a month ago. I wanted to, that's the purpose of today, is to find out what the yield has been since that month. I needed clarification, and that's kind of why I'm speaking now and not our chair, is because I said to both of them in another work session, look, I need to get everybody in the same room. So we're all hearing the same thing, but you all are hearing the same thing that we're hearing. And so that was what it was important to me. Are there any other developers or any other persons in here representing development or online? None being heard, then I'm going to go. Ms. Menzies, I believe you're representing the Wolf Creek District, or will you have one of your other?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And I have basically most of my board around, so Bud Hutchell, John Bingham, Pam Young is a board member, and Don Stefanik. So we have all of us present. And it's been a pleasure to work with the team because Jared has been extremely helpful and working with John and Shane and Eric. It's always exciting, and I'm listening to John talking and I'm thinking, I wrote the presentation and John is now going through it, except he's never seen it. So let's see how consistent it is. And it's surprising. What you've got in front of you as a presentation, you have printouts there. It's actually consistent with what John has just said. If you want me to, I will go through that on screen share and show you the pictures.
Please do.
All right.
This is it. Listen, there's nothing to hide behind here. We're all in full disclosure.
By
Can
the way,
I-
Miranda, I really like this, what you've written.
Okay, good. I'm glad. And apparently I have permission to share, so now the rest of the world can see it.
Okay.
We called it the Eden Sewer Service Area. And I don't want to get into complexities right now, but it is a subpart of our district is what we're anticipating. We need to get into the whole governance issue, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But what I'm going to do initially, I'm just going to put up a picture here of what this looks like. Let me try and get this thing looking cute. All right. So it looks like Texas. As close as I ever want to get to Texas. Other, she's laughing. All right, so.
There's
we
a
are-
song about that, by the way.
I'm
When you
sure
get
there
to
is.
George Strait, Texas is as close as I've been. You'll
Yeah.
get.
The last time I came through Texas, I was being chased by a tornado coming from Oklahoma. So I was Oklahoma City. So it was probably a good thing I kept right on going. I think the short answer is whatever you hear today is already happening. This is not planning, this is happening. So it looks like Texas. Those are things that I just drew on a map, but essentially it's what Commissioner Jenkins led us to. He suggested we might want to consider, and I got information from Sean also. It covers the area going from the Valley Elementary. He said the dam, but I took that to mean the development areas down by Port Ramp, because there are currently what I believe, Chad, you call them county sewer run areas over there. And we're hoping eventually that we'll be able to collect those. I'm hoping that will make Chad a happy boy. Then it comes around and up and past Nordic. The top boundary here is subject to discussion with Powder Mountain with what makes sense. But we essentially would join into where our current boundary runs up here, and then across the top of Bridges and back down to our current boundary across the top of the Wolf Creek development, and then back and around down to Valley Elementary. So that corrals basically the whole of the Eden, old and new. It includes Nordic, and it includes portions of Liberty, but at this point, our goal is to function initially via this, the idea of a lift station and a pressure line. One of the problems with starting new sewer service for new development is you have to deal with the problem of very few houses and how you don't have the sewage going septic in the pipes. So what we are hoping to do is to build a lift station right down here in the North Arm area, in this area here, if you can see the arrow. And the location is to be decided. We're working with UDOT, I believe, is the key element, because getting it along the right of way is difficult. And then that will be pumped up to our sewage plant, which is here. And then we move on to the whole question of disposal once it's been treated. The first developments to be incorporated into this are the ones John and Shane. Their Osprey Ranch is the one that's furthest ahead. Sewers are going in the ground. We have begun inspections and supervision. And the next one will no doubt be Kobe in due course. The Eden Crossing is mentioned in the Canon Will Serve letter that we provided to John and Shane. Eden Crossing, we understand, is somewhere in the vicinity of the four-way intersection, which is right around here. And we described this overall structure as phase 1A. The second piece of phase 1A is to build the reuse storage pond, which, as you know, we've applied to you guys for a grant. It is key to this whole thing because we have to have this enhanced method to manage the treated effluent. So that's what we are asking the county to participate in. And we really feel like when everybody holds hands, we make progress. So we're asking you to help chip in with some of those ARPA dollars to keep that reuse pond. It'll be a storage pond to hold winter flows so that we can use them on the golf course in the summer. Broadly, we have some water we can put in there from other sources, but it will be mostly focused on reuse water coming from the sewage treatment plant. The phase 1B, right behind that, is to add the primary sewers, which are the yellow ones in the commercial areas. We want to focus on commercial and these new developments. We believe that that's what I'd call the biggest bang for the buck. We want to get those continuous flows that come from those businesses where their density is a good thing in the village because it means that our businesses are supported. So we want to connect and support the businesses, and we've had a couple of them express what I can only describe as excitement about this. We also think at that point, we'd probably on that phase 1B be looking at Nordic, probably coming through Osprey Ranch, or if they want to look at another approach. Obviously, Nordic Valley Development, they're going to be paying their way. We are hoping that the creation of the sewers through that village, we will be able to find some grant money for. Where that will come from, we don't quite know, but we haven't dealt with that question yet. We're more focused on getting the lift station in place because that's what's key. Lift station to move the sewage up to the existing treatment plant where there is capacity.
And is your plan on that lift station to have it sized for not just 1A, but 1B and maybe phase 2 or?
It's 1A, 1B, and some of 2.
Okay,
Essentially, what we've got is a system here that will have flexibility, and I'm sure Chad will understand this, and Gary too. We've got the benefit of having an existing plant, so we can get this show on the road, and when it becomes clear that a new plant is needed, we have then the luxury of a little bit of time. We can find a good site, we can design it properly for the capacity that at that future time is clearly needed. And that would be more of a phase 2 question, that we will then add treatment capacity. It is possible that we'll be able to do something to expand at the plant, but we will have to expand what's called rapid infiltration basins. So we'll need additional land. We've also we're landlocked at that plant by Summit-owned property, and also the storage units belonging to Ray Bowden. So expanding the plant is a little on the tricky side, and it's not a whole lot cheaper than new development, but it may be cheaper. So I want to make sure that we have a good, solid engineering study to understand whether expanding is better than building new. Even if we built new, the chances are we would want to bring the treated effluent up to our current facilities location, for the simple reason that the Division of Water Quality does not want that water released down near the lake. They want that water released a long way from the lake and reused. So that's why the reuse pond is really key to this whole thing, and why we're looking at doing some careful planning at the front end to make sure the overall system will work. So the planning elements that right now we're in the middle of are this question of the lift station, to make sure that the lift stations, plural, that can accommodate Eden Village. And you saw yesterday in Jared's presentation that there will have to be some additional lift stations to move sewage around because the valley floor there is very flat, but there are some low spots. We want to be able to, I got John Werner from Eden Waterworks cooperated with us in providing flows from water meter data, so we know how much water comes from the commercial. At this point, it's somewhere between 10 and 15,000 gallons a day, and that will make operation of the lift stations much easier. We need to assess our disposal system. Once we've got the reuse pond built, what then is the disposal capacity of our system? And then we can look at the question of treatment capacity. All of this will be put into a separate impact fee facilities plan. I don't know if you're aware of how I'm sure you are, gentlemen, how the impact fee, you have to justify it in a plan with all the cost estimates and the engineers and yada, yada. So we're planning to do that once these first few things have been thought through by the engineers, which is what's happening right now. We also want to think through the governance. We want to make sure the people who are getting those sewage services have representation in some way. Initially, I'm guessing an advisory council would probably be the best thing to do so that they can have input on what's going on. The next thing is you asked John what was in the agreement. This is a very short summary of what is in I believe it's a 12-page agreement. I essentially took what I felt were all of the things that we needed, and he took all the things that they thought they needed. We had a meeting in March. I wrote this document that essentially covers all of them. And there was some initial shock value, but we got there. The culinary water coming up, we're going to split it 35-65. There is also a provision in there for them to re-drill one of our wells, which right now that element is on hold. It's not on this list. We need to get the reuse agreement settled with Weber Basin. That will feed back through into the tariff, the rates that will have to be charged for the sewers. And as John mentioned, there's going to be a new golf course irrigation system, which has got all of the golfers jumping up and down with excitement. We think we'll save about 20% of the water that way, which will be huge.
Well, in the meantime, you've got the Division of Water Quality jumping up and down.
I believe John Mackey's happy.
Yeah.
I'm taking his silent. Have you talked to him? I did send him a short email and got absolutely nothing back. And I'm taking that as, I'm happy. This is fine. Keep going, keep going. So
That's
I think
exactly the way I took it.
Yeah. So it is a very broad agreement. And I believe it will set the stage for success in Wolf Creek and success in the Eden Sewer Service area. This is a more detailed drawing that the engineers developed that shows the Osprey Ranch. It's not north at the top, it's north to the right. So Osprey is this one to the left. The four-way stop is once again in the middle here. And then this blue line is the pressure line. And also it may have water lines coming with it with suitable separation coming through Kobe Branch and the back around and over to our facilities area. Any questions?
I'd like to maybe add something to that, I think one thing that's really important to point out about Miranda's plan is that reuse pond, which is where she's putting the treated water from the sewer plant. You know, you're gonna come to a day soon at Powder Mountain where they're gonna need a new plant. They can't just do it on ponds for much longer. And that day will come soon. And that plant will have a problem on its hands where to put their treated. And it happens to be realistically really close to the pond she's trying to build. So if we put all of our heads together and build a big 90-acre reservoir, both Powder Mountain and Wolf Creek could use that reservoir. So I'd really encourage you guys to push hard on that.
We may want to look at making it even bigger, but it's key that's why we wrote in our grant application in the first place that we wanted to coordinate with Powder Mountain to bring their treated water in. Because if you look at it from a hydrogeology standpoint, which is the way I saw it, if you look on the map here at where, I guess I can't see on this one, but if you look at where Powder Mountain's ponds are, those ponds, if you put a plant there, the place that you would probably need to use as a rapid infiltration basin is right up gradient of a whole bunch of drinking water wells along River Road. So you're going to be looking either at having to bring water service in for those drinking water wells or having, frankly, grief from DWQ over putting that treated effluent in close proximity to drinking water wells.
Yeah, I don't believe that DEQ will allow another RIP. My meetings and discussions with them, I think land application is the only thing they're going to be willing to do. They're pretty firm on that.
i.e. golf course.
I golf course, yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be golf course. We actually have it fully approved for our entire secondary system.
Yeah, no, I agree. Secondary water.
Secondary of some sort.
Yeah, so we have a full
Application
secondary
to
system
golf
with
course,
Weber.
Doesn't matter,
agriculture,
just
something like
reuse
that.
it.
God,
Use it
right.
twice, for gosh sakes.
Use it twice.
Right.
That is my big thing. Use it twice.
Well, and a key in that Miranda mentioned is we did have a meeting with Weber Basin Water about their interest in reusing, because they're the majority owner of a lot of the water and the reuse of their water. And they were interested. They're going to start looking at it. They said there's some value to them, but at the same time, it might be used on a golf course, but a percentage of that water is still gonna get back into their systems versus
Culvert.
evaporation
Yeah.
of just going up in the air and
Sure.
evaporating. So they're very excited also.
Ms. Menzies, do you have anything else to go with your presentation today?
This is what the reuse pond looks like. It's designed around 19 feet. It's about a $5.5 million project. And we're asking you for 2 of those. The blue line is the pump, the disposal line coming up from the treatment plant. And the purple splotch is a piece of land that John Lewis has kindly provided to us.
Can you orient me again? I'm still.
North is to the top. This is the Wolf Creek Golf Course.
Okay, got
The
it.
4-way stop is down here.
Got
Chad is sitting in Pine View Lake.
it.
Powder Mountain Road is this road going off
Right
up at
there,
the top.
sure, I know the number.
So your Powder Mountain ponds
Ponds are
are
up
right
there.
around here, so it'd be reasonably possible to. I see this as a system where we're going to be having water flowing about. I don't think there's
Right.
going to be one solution. So we may very well be wanting to have shared sewer facilities with Powder Mountain where we can send them sewage if we have an excess. They can send us if they have a breakdown. You know, if you design plants, the locations of the plants and the pipelines at the beginning, you can make sure that everything holds hands and works together.
Great.
I'd also just mention too, Jim, that, you know, she may be asking for 2 for that, but we're asking for 1 for that also to be given to her. I really want to push hard on, it's 5.5. We all need to come up with our own money too, but she needs all the help she can get for not just Wolf Creek, but for Powder. So, you know, I'd like to respectfully change that 2 to a 3 from a request point of view anyway.
Well, there's a couple things that I'll write to in the study also, but the one example, just one, is the actual size of the lift. Because like Miranda's saying, we really need to size that for any potential flows that will come into that system. And one of the bigger potential flows could be the commercial areas in that area coming into that. So there would be an expense of existing people that are participating with those flows that could be paid for. So it's not just one part of the system that it's an entire system together.
Understand, thank you.
And I won't go through this. I believe Commissioner Jenkins saw this. It's very busy, but this was a support to our grant application. Basically, we think we're increasing. Right now, we've only got 5% of our supply coming from reuse, but we think we're going to increase that by this, at least the 100 acre feet, the 90 acre foot plus some. So that will be enough for, and I emphasize this, we have a moratorium because we do not have enough water for all of the lots that the developers have created over the last 40 years. And this system will supply that water to those existing customers who own building lots and who are, I can only describe it as desperate to get their houses built. We have probably
You've been
150
getting emails
buildings.
from them, Harv, those guys.
I'm sure you
Because I
are.
get them on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
And the reuse pond is actually the solution to that problem from a secondary standpoint. And the culinary end of it, we are working with John Werner on a mitigation agreement for the well that we drilled, which is this one here. We had the mother of all well drill rigs come out, a massive thing that drilled a well down to 545 feet. And it has good water in it, but we have to come up with a good mitigation agreement that satisfies even Waterworks needs and our needs. And we're meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. to do that.
Great,
Thank you. That's the presentation.
thank you very much. Mr. Warner, you're here. What can you say to all this?
I believe that it's a good thing. Sewers, water quality are coming, they're needed. We're Old Town area on the flatland where most of Eden is. So there's natural resistance to this kind of change. But there's enough people seeing good things coming from it. I think it's going to happen. We're glad to see that.
You're supportive of it, and
Yes.
you feel like that your district, the needs are being addressed and everything's good where you are.
Well, the two issues, one is installing a new system in the same vicinity as our delivery system for culinary water. And that's a problem that can certainly be overcome. Other is the use of the water, the reuse water. As I mentioned before, that water that goes through the system in a home and into a septic tank or into a drain field belongs to the company that provided the water. So we need to work that out. It's from this area that Miranda has identified, it's not a lot of water, but it's enough to make a difference.
It's a high proportion of the winter water in Cobbe and Cobbe Ranch area. But we've got to work through it. It's just,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Menzies or Mr. Werner? Very good. Let's move to Powder Mountain. There's Chair Barrett, Bob Barrett, you're here. I see Roy Watts appears to be on the line as well. If you'll go ahead and lead with the members that are on your board as well, please. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Miranda. That's an impressive presentation. You know, we've maintained that the most sensible approach would be an integrated sewer district, as you know. We believe that we could easily connect our existing sewer system to your existing plant and over time begin to develop alternative expansion of that plant or an additional plant elsewhere. We made that overture, as you know, and the timing wasn't right, but the offer is still good. Okay, it would make sense, and don't mention infiltration because that's become a standard pushback that is nonsensical. But what really would make sense would be an integrated sewer district. Okay, we're in a situation where we're using sewer lagoons that require maintenance. We believe we have capacity there in perpetuity with appropriate levels of maintenance, but they're land intensive. They don't provide any usable secondary water. So we would be very interested in moving forward with participating in an integrated sewer system that would allow us to use your existing plant over the short term to manage our sewer treatment. The use of the secondary treated water is something that we could let you use. It could drive land use application at the golf course, or more importantly, it might be useful for irrigation purposes within your existing district, which are consuming a lot of water. And there's no reason they shouldn't be using secondarily treated water for crop irrigation. Having said that, the situation we're in right now is that we believe that we're in line for ARPA funds as well. We put together, as you know, a proposal to the county that was well received. And developers appreciate the fact that we've represented a plan in the north end of the valley that can meet their needs. And we continue to make that offer. But the actual most efficient system would be an integrated sewer system in which untreated effluent from Powder Mountain would be managed over the short term at your plant. And that we, at that point, begin to develop creative solutions for secondary effluent and then locate an additional plant as needed or expand your plant as needed. That's what would make most sense. But if it doesn't make sense for you, I think our district is in a position where we're going to have to locate another treatment plant and make a strong appeal for ARPA monies, much like you're making, to make that happen. So that's my feeling, because I was involved in those overtures years ago about how it would make sense to integrate, and you didn't have capacity, or at that time you were doing something with Nordic, so that didn't work out. But I do think, based on the integrity of your proposal, which I'm very impressed with, that what you're talking about is essentially what we're talking about.
Very good. Roy, I see you on the line. Do you have any comments in addition to that?
I don't. I think that we can work with Wolf Creek and the engineers to come up with whatever plan makes the best sense. I think that's probably the most critical thing is how the engineering really works out in all of this. So yeah, I think we've got to spend a little more time in deciding how this is going to work out for the district, and maybe even come back with a better presentation out of kind of know how things are playing out.
Great, thank you. Mr. Thomas, I didn't miss you on purpose. Any questions? Do you have any comment?
No, I think it's just great to finally see, there's been studies done for years and years and years, and finally see something actually come to fruition, I think is a great thing.
Well, and it'll be driven. I think some of this is driven the fact that the county has ARPA funds, and one of the things we want to see is people working together because it's for the greater good of the whole Ogden Upper Valley. Commissioners, any questions for any of this next part that's been given? Statements or anything? Great. Staff, I'm going to go to you next. Any questions? Any of you? Mr. Meyerhofer? Gary?
I do have one question. Is there potential in the future to go bigger with the pond?
Oh, yeah. We need it, and I've got all the land in the world to donate to it.
Okay.
The issue is likely to be what development occurs immediately downgrading of the dam because of dam safety. That is
Right.
my main concern. So Rob, can you describe how you're meeting with Everett Taylor, please?
So Everett Taylor works dam safety.
Yep.
I asked him to come up, and we just kind of went out and walked the site that John's donated, and just hypothetically, what do you see here? It kind of tends to lead itself to be a good sized reservoir. He had those very questions. And that's what our 10-acre lake right now is currently high hazard dam.
Mhm.
So we meet every year and go over the operation and maintenance of that dam. So that's a very, valid concern for them. We've even talked briefly about the possibility of building the bottom half of the dam bigger, but only storing part of the water. As we grow, come in and finish the dam, having the base structure already taken care of. And they just kind of, yeah, makes sense. So I think we got a good feel from dam safety initially.
Well, I can see another 50 or 100 acre going into Kobe's
Yeah.
basin area. There's lots of good projects with just open space that'd be perfect to fill up with water. Not just for, storage, but for runoff, all sorts of good reasons.
That's encouraging because we see, as you're aware, all you guys that live up there, we see a lot of, like was stated, a lot of water in the springtime that occurs a lot of times. It's just overland flow. It would be great to capitalize, capture, use, put the best use on this and control. Yeah, Rob, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, let's harness it. Let's put it to work for us.
for sure.
Sean? Stephanie?
The thing that I will say is that in August, the state will reopen their redevelopment matching fund grant. And it's an opportunity for projects, large infrastructure projects to apply for matching funding up to $4 million. So we'll just kind of throw that out there as a potential for your project.
Can private development apply for that, or is that just districts?
Districts or local governments.
And we wouldn't expect to get any help with our development stuff, but anything we oversize, we're hoping we can work with the district to try to recoup some of that. That'd be nice.
It's actually built into your ordinance. You were for
Sure.
the county planning staff are forward thinking enough to build it into the sewer ordinance.
I don't have any other questions. That helps me a lot. Everybody gets to hear what everybody's got to say. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Jenkins? Commissioner Ford?
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
I think we made some progress here. So I think my initial concerns from day one, that I wanted all four, basically that side of the valley, brought together. I'm not in favor of using $1, as you well know, for just one purpose, if it serves more. Again, at the end of the day, that's a lot of ARPA funds going to a small portion of the valley. So we have to look at the proper use of those funds. What is the public going to receive from potential ARPA funding is a question that I've got to answer for the rest of the county. And I've got to make sure that we're balanced in the funds that go out. The other question I have has to do with governance. So I'm concerned with in the future, how do the people in this district, you mentioned advisory board, I'm not gonna buy off on advisory board. Anybody that pays a fee into that district needs to have a voice. And I get real jumpy when somebody that pays in a fee is on an advisory board that has no control. So I think we have, from my standpoint, that if this goes forward, it has to be an interlocal, but governance and who has a voice, who has a vote becomes critical. So you may want to discuss that. It's a control issue, I know, for your board, but to assess somebody, to use county dollars, to use public dollars without a voice, I can't go there.
I believe what we're likely to have is seats on the board for the Eden Sewer Service area is what I would envisage. So what you saw, Texas, is what I believe ultimately would be the Eden Sewer Service area. And I would expect there to be seats on our board for that entity. But I need to talk to attorneys who understand this, like way above my pay grade, to make sure that the 1,200 connections we already have, they are not then finding themselves with a bunch of people elected who don't have any insights into the water supply in Wolf Creek and yada, yada. We need to make sure it's balanced. I completely agree with you,
Well,
Commissioner
and
Thorold.
I'm not saying unbalance it.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
want it unbalanced to the point where those people in the new service area don't have a say.
I'm
I
of
believe they
the,
should.
I want you all to hear, I'm of the same mindset of what Commissioner Thor just explained.
And that was always our intention from the front end, that if we have a district expansion, that district needs to have representation on our board.
Makes sense.
Okay,
That's my
well, that
concerns.
pretty much takes care of it, what I had. Thank you for all coming, and I appreciate that. As we move forward, I'm sure this information will be helpful that we've learned today. Merci.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thanks for.
Is my, is my French getting okay? You got my message this morning.
I wish I knew what you were talking about.
And I gotta tell you, our conversation we had on a personal matter after made all the difference.
Thank
in
you
the world.
for starting the party. It
okay.
really was.
I can't tell you how
very
many
helpful
stripes
for
I
you to
took.
put your foot down and say, "Look, let's just have
But
some common sense."
I'm at peace. And now the ball's squarely,
You know,
it's kind of funny, there's an update to that, but
To get back together and make some. That's first, we got.
Yeah, I-
Our
it's-
second run. So we got
I've never taken such a whipping
right now.
a whooping
Yeah, so
in my
nothing
life.
stopping
You know,
us.
But it's okay, but I didn't, I was able to maintain where I needed to maintain, and it was really good.
Powder.
Mhm.
They've been great. We've been talking to them also. Yeah.